Hello, everyone,
Hello.
and welcome to the next installment of the Dogs podcast. This one is, I guess, just going to be giving a little more backstory on, a little more depth into Cole and myself. And it bleeds, it's kind of our personality, I would say, that kind of bleeds into our dog handling.
Mm.
But we're going to delve into the idea of domestication or being domesticated.
Mm-hmm.
And we'll start by reading the definition of domestication. The act of domesticating or accustoming to home the action of taming wild animals. The act of domesticating or accustoming to home the action of taming wild animals or breeding plants. I'll skip the next one because it doesn't apply, but the attribute of having been domesticated, adaptation to intimate association with human beings, accommodation to domestic life. And I guess the first one and maybe first and second one, and then the last two are the most applicable. But this idea was something that we have discussed in the past.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't think really hit me until one of our workshops last year.
Was it last year or the year before?
I don't remember. But it wasn't that long ago.
Yeah.
I guess I was trying to figure out a way to describe what it is that we were seeking. And in a way that would be hopefully more digestible for people. And this idea popped into my awareness, and it was, I guess I'll start with, there has been a finished horse that's been in my awareness, our awareness. And that was kind of a driving factor. And then we would say a finished dog.
Yeah, because we had them.
Yeah.
Have them, yeah.
And that was something that we would always shoot for and strive for.
Yeah.
And that's why we handle dogs the way that we do. But that's not really something that is understood by the dog industry. That's more of a horse term, a finished horse.
Yeah, I feel like we would describe it to people when we would talk about it, which is probably one of the reasons why you were looking for other ways of talking about it.
Yeah.
And then also, someone could hear the word finished dog and take it in so many different directions.
Mm-hmm.
They could think of it in obedience, in bite work, in
right.
Different realms, different levels, whatever you want to think. That's something that we would talk through with people, our definition, which we'll get into.
Yep.
What it means to us. And I guess in sharing our views, our goals with dogs, that maybe opened our eyes to just the difference that everyone has with where they're wanting to go.
Yeah. Yeah. And so I was think trying to figure out a different way of putting it, and dogs are domesticated, but that last bit of the definition, or the last two, were adaptation to intimate association with human beings, and then accommodation to domesticated or domestic life. And so a fully domesticated dog, that is a finished dog. And that has been what we have strived for. That was something that I suppose was deep down in both of us as we were growing the pack, as we were handling multitude of different dogs. We just wanted our days to be enjoyable and smooth to that fullest degree, and for there to not be gaps in a dog's understanding. And so I remember being at this workshop, and I feel like there were some people in the service animal industry, and I was like, that is a fully domesticated dog. That is more or less, that is a good idea or snapshot for people to grasp and very clearly grasp.
Yeah.
Is that vision of a dog that is level-headed, has energy, has work ethic, can go anywhere, do anything, gets along with people, kids, loud noises, other beings in different forms, cats, squirrels, etc., etc. And
Well, not only get along with it, but also be able to guide and stay connected to their person the whole time.
yeah,
They're doing a job. They have to stay connected to what their relationship is and what they're doing. Otherwise, it's not enough to just be and exist in the environment.
mm-hmm.
They also work through the environment.
Yeah. And so that, for some reason, it took me a while to get there, but I was like, that's a good example of what we feel a fully domesticated dog is.
And people can relate, or people can understand that a little more clearly because they maybe seen one on the street, or their family member has one, or maybe
And so on our journey, when we were developing the Jentle Method and whatnot, we didn't see anything in the dog industry that resembled that, except for dogs that just had it. They were born with it. Mm-hmm. Most of the trainers, and no offense to them, but they had a domesticated dog to a degree, but there was still stuff in there. It wasn't to that fullest degree, that finished degree.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's what kind of urged us to continue our search for something to help us get to that place. And we found it in natural horsemanship. And kind of the rest is history. And there's a lot more involved in it. But when it comes to this fully domesticated dog, that is what has intrigued us the most and kind of been a driving factor for us in our handling, in our development. And I guess the driving factor behind that is the unboundedness involved in it, the harmony involved in it, and the ease with which we are able to move through life with our companion, which they're not dogs to us. They're our companion. They're our counterpart, other half. So we wanted that other half to just be so full, for us to have an understanding of them to such a degree that we could elevate them to a level of fullness and harmony and like a finished place, a fully domesticated place, so we can leave them in the vehicle and not have them tear it up or bark. Leave them at home and not have them tear apart the home and bark or whine, or it's just this complete kind of state of liberty and connection also.
Well, I feel like one of the ways that we've gotten here is, and we kind of mentioned this in other episodes, is this refinement of our skill and of our observation of the dogs, and noticing if the dog is anxious about something, noticing if they're nervous about something or reactive to something, and looking at that in a more nuanced way than we used to. For instance, we used to maybe think of the reactivity in a dog towards another dog, but not see the reactivity coming out in these smaller ways.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like this awareness has helped the refinement process to get them to a more finished place, because we were just noticing more things. Oh, if they're reacting to this sound in the house and we work on that, that's helping out with these bigger things.
Yeah, if they're reacting to flies.
Yeah, or they're reacting to a sound in the house and we work on that, that's going to help this bigger expression, which ultimately brings the dog farther and farther towards domestication.
Yeah.
Because we're going about it in way more ways. We're looking at way more things than we used to.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and this is just Cole and myself. Like, I feel like we don't really see hurdles in front of us. We just have this kind of desire and urge to have a feeling, maybe, first and foremost, and then nothing really will stand in that way. And for us, having handled so many different dogs with so many different behaviors, and knowing very well what that feels like, the limitations that it can bring, the reactivity that it can inspire in us, the frustration that it can inspire in us, the sorrow, the who knows what, that just didn't feel good. And so we just kind of kept our spider senses open. And as you just mentioned, just kept refining things, because the feeling that was driving us was that complete liberty and freedom and harmony and connection with our dogs.
Well, it also just becomes more clear when you have more of an understanding of connection, the way that we describe it or feel it. And then when you're building in a relationship with a dog and you feel that connection come and then you feel it go, because maybe something else in the environment is taking the dog's attention.
A squirrel or food or who knows
person,
what. Yeah.
Which can happen incredibly frequently. That disconnect that happens is something that I guess we look to like dissolve.
That lack of connection.
When the connection goes away.
Yeah.
Instead of just not having anything in life
disrupt that.
Disrupt or trump
the
connection.
I feel that because there were so many mistakes that happened and the result of those that we talked about in the Oregon Tales podcast, I think as a result of that stuff, we're just like, whoa, that doesn't feel good.
Yeah.
So how can we help that?
Yeah. Well, something that I'm going through right now, with Six, because Stitch is just chilling, um, is I feel that ebb and flow of the connection with him,
Mhm.
because at this time, I haven't really sunk my teeth into working with him.
Yeah, you're just enjoying life with Stitch
Yeah.
in his
And
later years.
yeah, and you're enjoying Six and his development, but I am working with him, and I do handle him, and I do spend time with him, and there is a feeling that occurs to me when the connection goes away
Mhm.
with him and me and other dogs, and it just doesn't feel as good.
Mhm.
It just doesn't feel as good. Like, he's attached to me on the lead, but he's not with me,
Right.
and it's so hard for me to I can't let that go. I'm
Mhm.
like, "You're here with me, be with me. We
Mhm.
can be here together, connected, and you can let the other things go."
Right.
And that's such a practice, but there is a feeling there that is very very motivating, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah, it's been a big motivating factor. And who knows, like maybe some people have the same feeling or maybe we're just oddballs, but I mean, I feel like we're kind of oddballs.
I feel like I feel like some people
Some
listening
people
will
get it for
understand.
sure,
Yeah.
yeah. Um or they want to. I guess another facet of this, and it's been interesting to observe, and hard at times, but evolving in the dog industry and looking at all of the common dog handling techniques and all of the big name dog trainers and stuff like that, and not having a desire to learn from them
Mhm.
because of observing where they have gotten to and where they've chosen to stop.
Mhm.
And it's been weird to observe that and see so many people flock to them, but or us just not having any desire to go in that direction because of this. Because like bite work or obedience or dogs chasing balls or catching frisbees or doing tricks, all of that stuff has not been impressive to us. What has been impressive is that complete connection and harmony in life.
Mhm.
That's been it's been a bit of a struggle. We'll talk a little bit more about it in the Jentle Method podcast, but for us, that a finished dog, after seeing it in the horse world, a finished horse, and seeing what that looked like, and then getting dogs to that place and having that experience, I guess it makes sense that we continued on this path
Mhm.
because that to us is the most impressive. It's arguably the most challenging
Yeah.
because it's much easier to work with dogs and their instincts, whether you're doing it with food, overpowering them with food, working with them with food, or working with them with force, or, like dogs know how to bite things. Dogs know how to chase things. Dogs know how to
Be hungry.
be hungry. Like that, those are just very basic, it's like very low hanging fruit things to us. And that, uh, that's been an interesting thing to observe
Mhm.
is again almost this path that hasn't been walked that we've seen in the dog industry and choosing consciously to go down that path. That's been a bit of a challenge,
Yeah.
wouldn't you say?
Yes, I would agree with you.
Yeah, it's just easier. It's just easier doing that other stuff to a
It's
degree.
it's easier, but I feel that we tried that and we realized it actually wasn't easier because it left things in the dog that would come out later that would make life not easy.
Right. Well, yes, that's the way we see it.
Yeah.
But the way other people see it, they're like, well, I just want a dog. Like, I just want a dog.
Yeah.
And we're like, we want a fully domesticated dog. And yeah, it's just going for the pinnacle, is just to a degree, we made life a bit more challenging for ourselves, seeking something that's so high and elevated. And it's been interesting to observe also, this process, this path that we've chosen, because it has forced us, not forced, what's a better word?
Encouraged.
It's encouraged. It's kind of that's too soft of a word, I feel. It's just you have to do the work yourself in order to get another being to that place. Because we're not using any shortcuts and kind of using a dog's instincts and what they know how to do, because like they know how to do all of the dog things, but helping a dog get to that harmonious place has really encouraged / forced us to find that harmony within ourselves as well. Because I remember when we were switching from how we used to handle dogs to how we handle dogs now, I remember very clearly when we were making that transition and observing how reactive we were towards the dogs and how that kind of shifted to this even greater awareness of, okay, this dog did ... How am I going to respond? And there became a lot more awareness around that moment in time.
Yeah.
And that was a very beautiful thing to observe.
Yeah.
Because at that time we were kind of treating dogs, we were acting like dogs and treating them like dogs.
Yeah.
Emulating how they treat each other.
Like you're saying, if we were handling dogs and we were acting like dogs, I feel that now we're handling the being and we're acting as a being.
Yeah.
There's a quote, a John quote, that I love, and it's about having a dog have a dog experience or helping them have a soul experience.
Mm.
And I feel like that is key in this whole process. Is it's almost like observing the behaviors and the body language and all the things, but ultimately communicating with the more pure form of their being,
Mm-hmm.
of their soul, you could say.
Right.
And talking there instead of maybe talking to their instincts or talking to their senses or
Mm-hmm. Well, I just, it's clear as day now, but seeing how we used to handle dogs, it made sense that we didn't get a fully domesticated dog because we were treating them like dogs.
Yeah.
So we were just keeping them in their dogness. That's why we don't really pay attention to dog psychology or whatever the case may be. Our handling isn't predicated on the senses. Through food, through pain, through self-preservation, any of that stuff. It's feeling. and it's feeling of that being. It's feeling of the dog for the dog. And that's something that was from the horse world, but because they feel of the horse for the horse, that is how they can get to a finished, harmonious place. You can't get there if you don't have that experience, if you aren't handling a being from that level.
Mm-hmm.
And that took a while. I remember hearing that for the first time, feel of the horse for the horse. And I was like, that was a head scratcher for me, as I'm sure it might be for people listening. But but meditate on that. It's a really beautiful, beautiful thing, because it kind of flips. It flips the script and makes you pause before you react. Pause before you act. Become more aware of how you're responding and how you're listening. Are you listening? And if you're listening, what are you listening to? But to me, it's pretty easy to see, like, if like a good kind of sign on the road was if behaviors were still popping up in the relationship. We knew that we weren't there yet, and there was more that we could learn. If there was still whining, still barking, still scuffles, still prey drive, still pushiness, still fear, all of that stuff.
Overexcitement around dinner time.
Yeah. If that stuff was still there, then we just weren't quite, the dog wasn't understanding the being inside of them. They were still understanding and experiencing more of the dog and the senses and what they're born with.
Can you describe that more? The senses and what that feels like? Because it's very different, perhaps.
Yeah. I feel like if humans disappeared, dogs would be fine, because they know how to be dogs. But teaching them not how to be dogs, that is the, in our opinion, the skill, is helping them go beyond their instincts and their senses, go beyond the squirrel and chasing it and killing it, go beyond biting, having so much fear in your physiology that you bite someone, or fear of dying, and therefore you are acting on your prey drive so that you have food to survive. But I mean, the reality of the situation is, for most dogs on the planet, they have everything. They have food, water, shelter. They don't need to hunt and kill things because they're provided with food. They don't need to have a territory because their reproductive bits have been taken out or cut off. So we already push dogs in that direction, but we're just not following through completely. We just still allow the leftover instincts of domination or territory or prey drive. We just leave that stuff in there, and for, to each their own, but for Cole and myself, we were like, why are those still there? And so that's what we mean by going beyond the senses, going beyond the instincts. It's just enjoy life. Like, everything's taken care of. You literally just need to enjoy. That's what life is here for you to do. 100, 200 years ago, that wasn't the case. And it's still not the case for even some people with dogs in other countries. maybe like Mexico. My sister was living in Mexico for a long time, and there's like just stray dogs everywhere. Packs of
Even
dogs, and they
parts of the
fight
state.
for territory. They fight for food. They fight for mating. And so it's still there, but then look at humans, like we still fight. It's like
Are we domesticated?
we're not quite there yet. And so it kind of makes sense that most humans don't ask that of their dog
Mm-hmm.
because they themselves are living in their own instincts. And so just unconsciously, subconsciously, they choose to leave these things in their dog because they still are kind of animal and reactive and territorial, and who knows? It's just, yeah.
I think that's a great point about how we have brought them into a domesticated world, but not really brought them all the way in
Mm-hmm.
by domesticating them fully. And when I think of, like, in my mind, I'm imagining a dog on a lead reacting, like a bigger reaction, barking, snarling, pulling, lunging. And I look at that being, and that feels like a wild animal to me. In that moment, that feels wild to me.
Wild, insecure. Yeah, because I mean, if we just look at animals, like wild animals, like they act on self-preservation 200%. That's all their existence is. And so it's just if they're scared, they either fight or flight. And so most dogs are pretty much the same thing. Or they chase.
Mm-hmm.
The overexcitement thing, that's more of a domesticated thing that we deal with as humans. And have kind of created. That's not exactly in the animal world.
Mm-hmm.
In the wild animal world. Overexcitement, that's pretty easy to maneuver, to quote unquote. It's pretty easy to maneuver
It's still,
because it's not exactly instinctual.
yes, it's still, I feel that overexcitement can be pushed aside.
Mm-hmm.
And if they're not reacting or they're not running away or this and that, it's fine. They're just really excited to see the person, or they're
Mm-hmm.
really excited to play. Overexcitement is really dangerous.
Well,
Like,
absolutely.
yeah, I'm not, you know
Yeah.
this, but I don't think we've discussed it on the podcast that we've like we've seen people in workshops, we've worked with people, we've worked intimately with pack members that have overexcitement, and they've pulled their human over. They've broken
Mm-hmm.
their arm, they've broken a leg, they don't want to walk the dog anymore because of just too much excitement.
Right.
Or bringing a dog into the pack that's overexcited. If we let a dog like that off lead, that would be a huge liability for running over other dogs, for knocking us over,
Getting hit by cars.
getting hit by cars, getting
Well, that's
excited, running
kind
across the
of it's
street. Like, it's
funny. That's kind of like why it's not a part of the wild animal kingdom
right.
because those animals just don't live very long. Period. They don't live very
Oh my
long.
god.
That excitement leads to a lack of awareness, and then there
Right.
they go.
Yeah.
They get deleted from life.
Yeah.
But yeah, it is something that is very important to manage before it gets out of hand, or if it gets out of hand, kind of get it under wraps for sure, because it can be very dangerous.
Yeah. And it's not, if a person imagines a guide dog walking down the street, they can't get overexcited because they'll pull the human over. They won't think rationally. It's not quite in the territory of domestication.
Well, the other element of it is that we've observed, why one reason why we deal with it is because there also can be dogs that get excited, and then when that energy is elevated and they have more instincts, than some other dogs, that excitement can shift to and morph instantly into instincts, and then you have a bite or a running away or chasing something. But
it's also, I mean, in our experience with it, which is why we center that expression, is that there's not a lot of connection in it.
Yeah.
To the degree that we like.
Mm-hmm.
Like, when a dog is overly excited,
they're not present.
They're not in their body. They're not in the relationship. They're in their senses. They're in their experience. They're in their emotions or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
But that's a little tangent.
Yeah.
Can we define a finished dog or a domesticated dog? Can we kind of talk through our perspective on what that looks like for people?
So, in our eyes, I generally speaking just picture guide dog, service animal, fully complete there, but with an added twist, and that is socialization with other dogs. How to navigate that, all of the different personalities, being pushed around, being jumped on, not reacting, being ran up on, not reacting, knowing how to change energy to accommodate other beings, other dogs,
guidance from a person.
without guidance from a person, off-leash skills.
Meaning the dog can be off-leash in any environment, in any situation.
And navigate that.
Yes.
Yeah. And weird things can happen. Loud noises, like they're just bomb-proof. They're sacked out, which is a horse term. Like sacking out your horse means they can carry stuff, they can pull things, they can be around weird stuff and not spook and become instinctual. So it's just the most well-rounded being that you can possibly think of, and think of any situation that you can think of, and they can navigate that.
There's not overexcitement, there's not reactivity, prey drive, moments where they're like lost in their senses, in their emotions.
Yeah. That's a finished dog.
Complete leash skills. Like,
another, coming back to the senses, and why another element of us not wanting to delve into other methodologies is because they use the senses. And so if we're using the senses like pain with e-collars or prong collars or shock collars, or food, then we're using the senses, which means we're going to keep the dog limited to their senses, needing those senses to move through life, which is going to maintain some level of dog in them, which is why we didn't see this level of finishedness with dog trainers' dogs in other methodologies, is because they're handling the dog with and through the senses. That's a big element. That's a very big element. When it comes to natural horsemanship, again, working with the horse, feeling of them, for them, that is not through the senses. And that's, I feel, that's the pinnacle, or the cornerstone of how and why they're able to get the beings to that finished place, harmonious place, magical place.
it's almost like you're saying that there's a way that a person can work with a dog using the senses. So when the senses maybe come up, they use them. I feel that within natural horsemanship and within our work, if a sense comes up, we're guiding it to a better place.
Yeah,
We're
we're
not,
having the sense go away.
yeah, we're not utilizing it for the training purpose.
Or us being able to move and guide the dog through life.
Yeah, it's more, oh, your senses are coming up. You're you're feeling instinctual. Okay, let me guide that to a more peaceful place.
Yeah.
Let me put that to rest a little bit more.
I remember having a conversation with this gal at our last workshop, actually. And this person works with dogs, and we were talking about them handling this particular situation with this dog, and they got really big, and I think they made some loud noise with something. Got really big and made some really loud noise with some pot or something like that. And the dog tried to do something again, and then came in that loud noise again. They brought that loud noise in again. And they were asking, well, why not use that?
Because it's achieving a response.
Because it's achieving the desired response. And the dog softened, and they stopped what they were doing. And for us, it's just a no-brainer. It's because now you're number one, you're using the sense to get to the dog. And so you're probably going to have to use that in the future. And most likely that behavior is going to pop up. Maybe not with you, or maybe with you in like a month, 2 months, 3 months, or it might pop up with somebody else, because the dog doesn't have a relationship with that person. And so you're using anytime someone's using the senses, whether it's squirting them with something, or a loud noise, or any of that stuff, to us, we ping on that, because that's not going to get you there. It may get you a response and some seeming success for a period of time, but just give it time. You'll see.
It will get them to a different place.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You'll have control over them to a degree, but you might need to carry a pot around, or you might need to carry a squirt bottle around, or you might need to have a shock collar on. And that's just...
Or now, instead of...
Or food.
If you use a noise, then now they have fear around other noises, that it becomes a liability when you're on a trail. Like,
yes.
I feel
if you have multiple dogs, you have the one pushy dog that you can handle with the pot being banged or the squirt bottle. But if you look to your right, two of your other dogs, or one of your other dogs, is now in a really bad mindset because it's too sensitive for that sound and that response that you use to control your more pushy dog.
Right.
So,
well, if it's also it just gets muddy.
Yeah.
Because we work with many dogs at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
And if the noise is punishment, and then the other dog isn't doing anything wrong, and the noise comes out of nowhere, that can cause something to go on in their physiology, because they associate that with something.
Mm-hmm.
So it just gets funky.
Yeah.
And we've done the things.
Yeah.
We've tried the things, and so and we've just...
Well, the funny thing is now is, and I joke about this at workshops, but people who, when we see things in dogs, I remember when we used to handle dogs the way that we did. I remember working with this one red zone dog, and I went over and I met the humans, met the dog, and I was like, all right, I'm going to take him for a walk. And as I was walking around the block just to get a feel for the dog, I noticed how sensitive the dog was. to physical touch and then sound. And I was like, great, I got this dog. I'm confident I can help this dog.
How long ago was this?
This is a long time ago.
Okay.
Because if you mess up, if you do something that I don't like you're used to around other dogs because you're red zone, you want to kill them, all I have to do is make this noise and then I have control over you. I'll snap your brain out of it. Well, now, when we see that sensitivity, we get that sensitivity out. We remove and dissolve that sensitivity. We don't use the dog's sensitivity to control them and guide them through life. That was a huge thing to observe and learn. But we got there because we helped dogs to a point. That red zone dog that I worked with, I got him to a certain point. He was acclimated into the entire pack and everything. He knew not to make any mistakes. But when he went back to the human 6 months later, they were doing something, whatever, and it just mauled one of their dogs and had to be put down. And
this was before the Jentle Method.
This was before the Jentle Method. Yeah. And so just seeing this stuff, we were just like, okay, it's not complete yet. So now when we see squirt bottles or shock collars and this and that, or another funny one was when we used shock collars and we were transitioning away from them, we were just trying to be softer with dogs. And we limited ourselves just to vibrate on the shock collar. And I remember talking to some trainer who uses shock collars, and they're like, oh, we don't use vibrate because that can deter dogs to a much greater degree than a low stim.
Like they can be too sensitive to
the vibrate. And now I listen to that and I'm like, well, that's just a way too sensitive dog. Using a vibrate, I understand why they wouldn't want to do that to a degree. But now I look at it and I'm like, that's just too sensitive of a dog.
Yeah.
And if using a squirt bottle and that a dog shying away from that, like, oh, I was going to go eat this. Oh, there's a squirt bottle. I don't want you to have that fear in there.
Yeah.
I don't want you to be scared of being squirt.
Yeah.
Or be scared of that I'm going to make a loud noise to punish you or correct you. If we see those things, we go in and dissolve them, which is kind of counterintuitive to so many other methodologies of dog handling. And also the fun on the opposite end of that is if you're too food driven, we're like, okay, we're going to dissolve that too. That we can't have that in there.
Well, a piece of that I want to emphasize is what is being applied and then what is it producing in the dog. Like you're saying, by applying something, you're putting fear in them. And so there's going to be fear in them because we're putting it there.
We're putting it or maintaining it.
Or there's going to be excitement in there.
Yeah.
Because we're putting and maintaining and feeding.
Literally,
potentially feeding the excitement.
Yeah.
And so
to keep that drive, that elevated drive in there so that we can easily guide dogs to do things.
Yeah. And so it's going to be in there.
Which means they're not going to be able to be a finished dog because of that very reason. Because they get overshadowed by things.
Well, it's also like if you're working on reactivity and you're utilizing fear, okay, let's say the reactivity goes away, but there's fear in there.
Yeah.
Or you're utilizing food and excitement as the drive for maybe fear.
Or just being calm and leaving something.
Yeah. But then what are you leaving in there? Excitement.
Yeah.
For the thing.
Yeah. Yeah. And so coming back to this feeling of the animal for the animal, this is the point. It's if a dog has energy to act on something, let's use a squirrel or whining. So that's energy that's being expressed to chase the squirrel, to whine. It's communication, it's energy coming from the dog. And then we enter in some punisher, pain, let's say, or a distraction from that energy. In my head now, I'm like, where does that energy go? Where did it go? So the dog is not chasing the squirrel. They stopped chasing the squirrel, but where did that desire go? And so now what we look at is this energy transforming. I have this desire to whine. I have this desire to chase this squirrel, and now I feel pain, or now I feel distraction. Now I want food. Where did the energy go?
The energy that was coming up for that expression.
Yeah. So in one situation with pain, it transformed into pain. And then in the other experience or expression from the dog, it transformed into desire for food. But in either of those situations, it's just what is the energy transforming into? And so for us, how we handle dogs and how they handle horses is they guide the feeling to feeling better. They sit with the animal, they guide the animal, asking them this, this, and this until they literally feel better. Then they know for certain that energy, that desire has dissolved, and it's not anything other than just it went away. As opposed to guiding a dog with pain or punishment or distraction, you're just changing the energy into pain or food, desire for food. But desire for food is self-preservation, and pain is also self-preservation. But that natural horsemanship way of feeling of the horse for the horse, that is the magic. Is you guide them until they literally feel better. You feel the desire, that energy dissolve and go away, and it's a peaceful thing. It's a soft thing. It's a light-filled thing. That is the magic.
The way that I'm thinking of it is the desire comes up, the feeling comes up, the energy comes up.
The instinct.
And the person, I want to say takes the hand, but I know they already have the hand of the animal and like walks them through that feeling together.
Yes. Yep.
Not within the feeling, beside them.
Mm-hmm.
Walks them through it until they're ready to feel something else.
Yeah.
Until that has expressed itself.
Yeah, until it's gone like full circle.
Until they're ready to let it go.
Yes.
And I feel that what can happen is that a person might think, oh, then I have a dog lunging, and then they go to complete peace. And then they want to like approach the animal and be at peace, and it becomes this romanticized thing. And in my head, I think that's a pretty high expectation.
Yeah, it's not that romantic.
I think it's the scale of the change.
Mm-hmm.
Because this analogy or this way, I guess, it doesn't mean that a dog that has severe reactivity is going to turn into an angel after you walk down that one interaction with them.
Yeah. Yes.
It's reforming patterns and associations and experiences over time.
Well, that brings up another point, and that is advanced dogs. For example, Buck breeds his own horses so that he has easier and easier time helping his horses get to a finished place. He sets himself up for ease.
Which I feel that you can also think of with service animals.
Yes, absolutely.
Service animals are bred to perfection.
Mm-hmm.
And so that when they are moving through their systems, it's easier.
Their protocols.
They're not pulling a dog from a rescue and then putting them into their program. That would be way harder.
That would not be very cost effective for them. That being said, I'm sure I know that there's rescues out there and service organizations out there that do rescue dogs.
Yes.
But they're picking easy dogs that they know will excel in these areas. The thing with rescue is that's pretty tough to a degree is, and it's not just rescue. It can be breed. Like if you breed a challenging mom and dad, or just a challenging mom or a challenging dad, what you're going to get is potentially the majority of challenging dogs, advanced dogs. And what we mean by advanced dogs is what Cole, you were just mentioning, is the process is just longer in holding their hand to help the dog choose a different path in life than their instincts.
The wins are smaller.
The wins are smaller, but it's also just an understanding that is not very common in the dog industry, because positive only, at some point, they'll just delete dogs or euthanize them.
Or medicate them.
Or on the flip side of that, the dogs are subjected to just nasty feeling to subjugate them, force them to act certain ways and whatnot. But the way we look at dogs that are challenging is it's just going to take a lot of time and effort and advanced skill and awareness to help that dog get to a better place. That's how we handle dogs. We don't take shortcuts. And so when it comes to choosing a dog, if you choose a dog that has a lot of stuff, a lot of strong feelings, and they're just very instinctual, the process is just going to take a lot longer, because most oftentimes, what we see are just, there's a lot of green handlers, not advanced handlers, with very advanced dogs. And the humans are playing catch up in a very big way. It's just going to take a lot more time for that human to develop their skills so that they can support that advanced dog through their feelings. But time and skill is paramount. But what we see so oftentimes is that an advanced dog comes along and there is a rush for trainers to help the human accomplish their goals at the expense of the feeling of the animal. And it makes sense, because treat dogs the way they treat themselves. They're fine with feeling pain. Look at how they communicate amongst themselves. And it's like, cool, that's an avenue to help people get their dogs to get them off leash, or get them to go to a cafe, or who knows what. That's an avenue. But for us, when we see advanced dogs, we're just like, that's just going to take a lot of time because we don't do those things. We don't take those shortcuts.
It's almost like potentially treating the dogs kind of the same on similar trajectories or paths or timelines, and maybe putting a timeline on a more challenging dog that has more feelings, bigger feelings, stronger feelings, putting a timeline on them that is maybe more realistic to put on a dog that has softer feelings.
Yeah.
And then that's where there can be some clashing between the dog and the person and maybe the trainer, is that, like, for us, it's just going to take longer.
Yeah.
A way that I like...
Or for other trainers, it's going to be, let's say it's a month-long board and train or 2-month-long board and train, and that's the board and train. And at the end of 2 months, and why trainers will say, oh, it's a 2-month board and train or a 1 month, and they accept all dogs. And it's like, how are you doing that? The way you're doing it is you have 100 on an e-collar. And so you're just using that feeling, that intense feeling, to have a dog conform to and navigate their feelings. You're in 1 month or 2 months.
Right. Like, they're all on the same timeline.
They're all on the same timeline.
We're similar.
And for us, as you were just saying, if a dog has really strong feelings, we don't overpower them with food or force or pain. We are just like, okay, this is going to take maybe 2 years, 3 years, 4 years to help guide you through these feelings.
Well, that's a tricky thing, is that the way that we work is that we work with the feeling as long as it needs to be there.
Mm-hmm.
And it's there as long as the dog needs it to be there.
Yeah.
And I can't get in their brain and say, oh yeah, they say it'll be done. I'll be over this in 2 months, or I'll be over this in 6.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. A piece, or a way that a person can look at this, is that each dog that comes into our life that we handle, we have the same list of things that we look for. It's pretty big, but every dog has the same protocol. We ask and look for the same thing with them all. You could, like, some things on the list would be softness and responsiveness on lead, but not oversensitivity. Fluidity moving through the Jentle Method. The ability to connect with us amongst lots of distractions. Not being overly sensitive in their body to us handling their paws. Social interactions, being cordial and aware and soft and responsive. All these things. Really good recall. Understanding of leave it. The ability to relax. The ability to run and be at a higher gait. So there's this big list of things that we look for with each dog. Dogs that are easier move through that list quicker.
Yep.
Like, we started a dog in the pack this last season, and he moved pretty quickly through them.
Yep.
We were moving down the list, and he was just check, 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 check. And so we were able to move through it and get him off lead more quickly.
Yep.
When the dog is more challenging, you start moving down the list, they stick on 1 for a while.
Mm-hmm.
And then they stick on 2 for a while,
mm-hmm.
while they're still stuck on 1. And then 1 is good, but then 3 is hard. And they're on 3 for 2 months. And so the way...
Then you need to go back to 1 and polish that back up, because that dissolved a little bit.
Yeah. So moving down the list is a much slower process, and they hold on to, let's say, resistance to these things or maybe challenge and understanding more, and they have more blocks and things coming up for them, feelings coming up for them, maybe strong feelings coming up, whereas a quote unquote easier dog doesn't have those blocks. They don't have these bigger grooves that we're working through.
Yeah.
But it's all the same list. It's all the same curriculum. It's just how they move through it. And so when we work with a dog, we start presenting things. How do you feel? How do you respond? How do you move? And I feel that that's a way that we learn the difficulty, or maybe just learn more about the dog through how they move through different asks and how they hold on to things
How
or
they
not.
feel.
How they feel.
Yeah, I feel like at this point, if you or myself handle a dog, we can pretty quickly tell how long something's going to take to help a particular dog. Now, it doesn't take me very long to hold the end of a leash for me to realize this is a very challenging dog, or this is a very easy dog, or this is a medium dog. But that's taken quite a bit of time to develop. And again, coming back to this feeling of the dog for the dog, of the horse for the horse, the feeling is what is the most important to us.
Yes.
And so dog trainers that can get things done a lot more quickly than we do, that's not impressive to us.
Yeah.
That has not been impressive to us because we've done that. I could be, quote unquote, more quick with my work with particular dogs, but the expense is not worth it now because I know what that leads to, and there's leftovers in there. And you just mentioned deep grooves. Those grooves are instincts and feeling. And instincts are those are a very challenging thing to navigate. As we can all probably agree, we all have fears in life. We all self-preserve in some way. We're all reactive in some way. We all instinctually look at the opposite sex or suppress things, suppress instincts and feelings. It's very common ground for us to stand on with dogs. That is common ground that we stand on with them. It's interesting because I've heard so many different trainers over the years and pretty well-known ones talk about different scientific studies that they point to validate their way of handling or whatnot. And one in particular is I think that they will use as an example of sticking their finger in like a light socket. You know, if I stick my finger in a light socket, I'm going to feel a shock, and I'm going to learn to not do that next time. And using that, which isn't a scientific research, but using that as kind of an example. You know, if a dog does this, then they're going to feel an ouchie. And so they're going to learn to not do that over time, like we do. But the thing is that sticking your finger in a light socket to us is not instinctual. That's curiosity.
Right.
The dog chasing after a squirrel, the dog wanting to self-preserve and bite or run away, and then feeling pain or a shock or something like that. Your shocking instinct, which is that gets pretty muddy if you think about that. Animals evolve, beings evolve over time to not stick their finger in a light socket. I'm sure many, many years from now, kids will learn to avoid electricity, but electricity has only been around for not that long. But horses, so many animals know to stay away from other animals just instinctually.
Mm-hmm.
Rattlesnakes, that sound, because they've heard it for so long that it's kind of been programmed in there. So that's another angle that we think about in our handling is, what are we dealing with and how are we having the animal feel in response to their feelings? And if they're running on instincts, it doesn't get much more intimate to a being than instincts.
Mm-hmm.
That's the core of how they function and navigate life. And so making them feel bad for those or feel pain for them, that is, like I said a while ago in this podcast, it's not going to lead to that finished place. It can't.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to be making a blanket statement because I know that there's low stem, and I know that there's food that is utilized to work with dogs, such as seeing eye dogs for the blind and so on and so forth. What I would present is that those dogs, nature has done a lot of the work to get them closer to a feeling of harmony. And so using low stem or using food will help you get there, for sure. Will help you get closer to a harmonious place. But what I would say is that, how much of that is the food and how much of that is the low stem and how much of that is nature? That is going to always be up for debate. But what I lean towards, if a dog is able to get to a more finished place with the use of those things, that they were already there. But the thing is that with a finished dog, guide dog, a really well-bred organization, is that those dogs don't get overshadowed by their senses. So if you use food, fine. If you use a toy, fine. If you use low stem, fine. They don't get overshadowed, which is why you're able to use that and they can get to a finished place. I think that's a point, a very important point to make, because I don't want to put out into the world that, oh, well, you can only work with dogs in this way to get them to a finished place. That's not what I'm saying. If you're working with a dog that's really well bred and nature has gotten them to a place to where they pop out of the womb harmonious, then you can use whatever the heck you want to guide them through life, because they don't get overshadowed
Right.
by their senses, consumed by their senses. Those are the grooves of instincts are so minimal that you could use whatever you want. You could use a butterfly to teach them who knows what. Guide them through life. Any methodology would work.
When I was doing guide dogs, and by the time I was finishing the program, things had changed. But I believe when I started, the way that it was and the way that we handled dogs before, even with e-collars and other tools, is that in order to be finished and fully domesticated, the tool goes away.
Mm-hmm.
So with guide dogs, we were using treats and we were using prong collars, gentle leaders. Were we using prong collars? Definitely like the chains, the choke chains. It
Mhm.
was like the old school way of
I don't remember what that's
word.
called. Actually, I don't even know what that's called. Is that called like a Hermspringer or something?
I don't know.
Yeah,
Anyways, yeah, we were using tools like we were using corrections and we were using food. But when the dog graduated, they were no longer using food. They were no longer using corrections. That is something that we used to apply when we were using other tools is, okay, we'll start a dog on an e-collar, but they'll get off the e-collar.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that that's an important piece of this is that going all the way means all the tools go away too.
Like everywhere.
Everywhere.
Yeah. All the time, everywhere. Like that there's complete graduation from the tool. Complete graduation from a cage, complete graduation from a shock collar, complete graduation from food, aside from they need to eat.
Yeah.
That's a
I remember applying that when I was in high school doing this and teaching the puppies I was raising recall using treats. And then my teachers saying, okay, you need to stop using that. Start weaning your way off of those pretty quickly.
Mm-hmm.
So that when they finished their training with me, they weren't using those treats for recall. They weren't using treats for certain things.
And so if we think about that, think about how quickly those dogs were graduating from these tools is a testament to how easy they are.
Right.
The worst dogs that come out of these service animal places, organizations, have like loose poop.
Yeah.
Or maybe they're just a little too excited or they're a little too lazy.
Yeah.
We're not dealing with serious instincts and behavior, actual dog behavior. That's been bred out so long ago.
Yeah. Yeah. And even my last guide dog, Morgan, who was he was career changed and my dad kept him and he passed last winter. He had no experience with the pack. The way that we were raising guide dogs at the time was that they didn't really socialize much.
Mm-hmm.
It was kind of one-on-one with friend dogs, but you wouldn't go to dog parks or take them to dog walking services or anything like that.
So he was under-socialized.
He was very under-socialized.
He had a social deficit.
Definitely.
Yeah.
And when my dad had him, so he was much older than, he must have been like 5, 6, 7, 8, etc. He lived until he was 14. We would board him when my dad would go out of town sometimes just to give him the pack experience. And it was such a testament to their breeding because he had no social skills really. And
no social experience.
There we go. He had no social experience.
But he had all the social skills.
Yeah.
Which, just think, well, let me reiterate that. He had zero social experience, but all of the social skills. Let me say that again. He had zero social experience, but all of the social skills. And he came out to pack and was just flawless.
Flawless.
With all of the different personality dogs, high energy dogs, low energy dogs, dogs that didn't want him to play or interact with him. And he was like, I know to not go over to you somehow. And
my dad spent time with him off leash, but his training wasn't off leash. That's not what guide dogs does.
Yeah.
And he did pack days off leash.
Yeah.
Would see prey, no interest. Did the run, learned it within less than 5 minutes how
Mm-hmm.
to do it, where to be. His integration
It
was
was like 2 hours
incredible.
to check all of the boxes.
Incredible.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that is a testament to the breeding and to just the protocol that he was raised with.
Yeah,
And
very strict.
yeah, and
Very
my dad's
strict.
guidance. I feel that is a beautiful, beautiful thing. I feel that what is also beautiful is that the way that we work with animals is that they don't need that kind of breeding in order to get there.
Mm-hmm.
So they can have pretty much any history. They can have any history and get all the way if a person guides them all the way.
Yeah, if somebody dedicates themselves to developing their awareness and skill to also go beyond their senses so that they can help their dog go beyond their senses. I remember in Buck's documentary, there was this woman with all these Mustangs, and there was this one foal that she saved because it was going to die, and she raised it, and it just turned out to be a monster of a horse, biting people, attacking people. And then he found out that she had like a bunch of other Mustangs at her place, and he was like, he looked at her compassionately, but he was like, "Don't you want to enjoy life?" Like, what she had created for herself was just a lot of work.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of work. Almost like an insurmountable amount in what she had created with all of those horses. And I think that one way of putting it is, if somebody's looking to get a dog, it might be beneficial to look at how much of the work nature has done in regards to you achieving or getting to the place that you want to get to with a particular dog. So if you have this vision of having a more finished dog, a dog that is able to go to dog parks, say hi to dogs on leash, walking past them on trails, have a dog that's off leash, have a dog that can go to barbecues or just go anywhere.
Interact with anything.
If you want that, how much of the work has nature done or not done? Because if nature hasn't done the work, then that means you're going to have to do the work. And I feel like that's a very big thing that for some reason is overlooked, or it's not necessarily overlooked, but I guess maybe at this day and age, and especially in the United States, that people are really trying to learn how to overcome their own senses because they're choosing some pretty challenging dogs to help them overcome their senses
Mm-hmm.
and their instincts. That to me is a very poignant point to make, is that when you're looking for a dog or whatnot, just think about how much of the work nature's done, because the work that it hasn't done, you're going to have to do. And again, like Cole mentioned, if nature hasn't done a lot of the work, then it's going to take a lot of time potentially, and dedication and devotion.
Depending on how far along the person would like to get the dog.
Yes.
Depending on the person's goals.
Yes.
That's
exactly.
part of the...
Yeah.
Yeah.
If you just want a dog in your backyard, then it doesn't really matter how much work nature did, because you don't really care. You're just like, I don't care if I have a dog that fence fights or barks or annoys the neighbors or kills squirrels every once in a while. And that's fine.
Yeah.
But if you're somebody who's really wanting that more romantic image of car camping with your dog or going to cafes, et cetera, and you want to work with them the way that we do and not pain them to get there or distract them to get there, then it's just going to potentially take a lot of time if nature hasn't done the work.
I feel that it's something that I gravitate towards within the realms that I learn in life, or gravitate towards regarding the methodologies and mentors that I choose, is that the path can be at any level a person desires. So there isn't a ceiling to the methodology. So something that's beautiful in the Jentle Method is that a person can, and we've said this before, a person can use it if they just want a better walk with their dog. Or maybe they want to work on certain reactivity, or they want to get the dog out of using a crate or a cage. And utilize the tool for something maybe more simple or fewer things, but then a person can also use that same tool and get to a finished place.
Mm-hmm.
And that is the same with natural horsemanship.
Yeah.
And it's the same with transcendental meditation.
Right.
And I find that so enjoyable for me because it's not that I'll put forth work and then I'll hit a ceiling and I'll need to look elsewhere.
Mm-hmm.
And then I'll hit a ceiling and I'll need to look elsewhere in order to continue growing. I get to grow within the methodology all the way
Right.
through. And other people are going to learn in different ways. They're going to take from here and take from there. And that's beautiful for a person if that's what they enjoy. I guess I just really appreciate that if the person is there and devoted and dedicated and curious and soft and firm and all the things, that they can go all the way.
Mm-hmm. With any dog.
With any dog in
Yeah.
their care.
Yeah, I feel like that's what drew us to natural horsemanship and vaquero style horsemanship, which was how finished it was, how fully domesticated the process was.
Mm-hmm.
That was a big element. And then looking before we kind of fully devoted ourselves to it, looking at positive only, and like that process fails. It had a ceiling at some point with some dogs. The medication would fail or the food would fail, and then they would delete the dog. They'd euthanize them. Or similarly with force training. It's just, there are some dogs out there who just do not care. They don't care about pain and force. We've worked with them, the dogs that don't feel.
Yeah.
And so that had a ceiling. And so, yes, methodology worked for 80% of dogs, 90% of dogs, let's say. But what about that 10%? That 10% didn't feel good for us. To have 10% of beings for us to not be able to help them.
Yeah.
That didn't feel good.
Yeah. Or not even just help them, but help them to be domesticated.
Yeah. But we're not going to sugarcoat that 10% of dogs, how long that might take.
Yeah.
That, we will not downplay that at all. When you get advanced dogs, they call for advanced skill and then also advanced patience.
Yeah. One of the reasons why we wanted to express these things and why we do express these desires of ours and the path that we walk is to give people another option for what is possible within their life with the dog.
Yeah, it's almost like there's a different smoothie out there, or a different kind of food, or a different yoga position,
Right.
or lifestyle, or something,
Yeah.
and presenting that.
Yeah, because we didn't really see it in this industry, and so we found it somewhere else in a different industry.
Well, it's basically, if you look at the dog industry, it's just you're either one or the other, or you're a combination of the two.
Mhm.
And it's like, okay, that's what I get to work with. So,
Right.
and that's what we saw and felt, and we're like, there's got to be something else. So here we are, thankfully.
Yeah, I feel that there's value in sharing that it is possible to bring dogs to this place of harmony and connection and feeling and awareness. Giving people the option and showing that it is possible, and perhaps removing limitations from the dog or from a person about where they can get
Mm-hmm.
and what they can feel. I feel that it's something that's fairly common within people is limiting ourselves and potentially not seeing the all possibilities in things.
Mm-hmm.
And that's something that inspires us to share this point of view, to hopefully not have the inspiration be taken as like a restrictive thing almost with a dog,
Mm-hmm.
of needing to, like, seeing us unveiling the list or where we can bring a dog, and then a person seeing the goal and then trying to get there as fast as they can,
Mm-hmm.
and working in maybe lots of different ways that might not be realistic or maintainable. I feel that something that can be emphasized is softness within the journey. It's almost like we don't have to get to the end in order to enjoy, we can enjoy now.
Mm-hmm.
It's just going to look a little different.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah.
I feel that that's what can be tough for a lot of people that we've come across over the years is, maybe they go to a rescue or they get a dog somehow, and they're told that the dog is one way and it's another way.
Mhm.
When they start working with it and they're like, well, this is way more challenging than I signed up for or wanted. And that in regards to where they want to be with their dog and where they're at. And there can be some strong feelings that arise in that moment. And there can be quite a bit of work done in that moment to be in that moment and find some acceptance in that moment so that you can enjoy the process of getting to there, to those goals.
Yeah. And the
Because
dog
the
can
thing is,
enjoy it.
most of the people, they're like, I love this dog. It's not going anywhere, but dang, I wish it was going to be easier. And that's a tough spot to be in.
Yeah.
It's a very tough spot to be in. And that's a practice in and of itself. But that's learning to be soft with yourself, soft with your dog, and still be steadfast in your goals and desires. And know that you will achieve them, but we will achieve them at the right time, at the perfect time.
I feel like what can happen is a person can start to focus a great deal on the work, which is great. I feel that what we balance within that is focusing on letting them like play and be like we have people that we work with and they'll ask if they can play with their dog or if they can like run around with their dog or let the dog be goofy or snuggle with them. I feel that that part of it is also really important for people and for the dog. Like, we've had really challenging fosters in the past, and we still let them have moments to be goofy.
Yeah.
Depending on the difficulty, it might be 5 minutes in a very controlled environment, in a very controlled way. But just because we're working on things with a dog does not mean that we put all that aside until they're better.
Yeah.
Like you've said in the past, if we take all of that away from them and life is just hard and life is just work and life is just a challenge, then what are they working for?
Yeah.
And I feel that that piece is important. And it's a balance because some people fall into
too looseness.
It's too loose. Yeah, they want to play with the dog, so I take them into a dog park and there's not this awareness around
or there's looseness in the home or
there's looseness in the home or there's a fine line and a moving target with each dog as they're growing. How much is going to be healthy? But we still find it. Yeah,
it can't be all work.
Yeah.
And people get lost in the work. But that element to this stuff, I feel, is it's a personality thing too. People can get so engrossed in objectives and just checking boxes. And I'm like, well, where's the feeling in that?
Yeah.
There's not feeling in that. So it can't just all be work. There's got to be that softness of feeling there. And that's just something to be aware of on your journey, is just don't get too regimented, but then don't get too unregimented.
Yeah, it's like what you say with the lead work, where during the workshop, Jonathan will say, you're going to go home and you're going to be too firm. And then you're going to notice that you were too firm. And then you're going to be too soft. And then you're going to notice that you were too soft. And through that process, finding a place where finding a good place. And it's the same with this, is knowing when to push and to grow and knowing when to back off and to soften and when to
like I go through that with Six. For the first year, I pretty much played ball with him every single day for an hour. maybe 360 days out of 1 year, I played ball with him for 1 hour. And then I didn't play ball with him for like 6 months. And that's a little extreme for some people, but just to give you an idea,
Mm-hmm.
it's just finding a balance, and each dog's going to be different. And also, we are going to be different too, because maybe we don't want to work.
Yeah.
Maybe we just want to go and throw the ball, or maybe we just want to go for a casual walk instead of working.
Yeah.
So be it.
Yeah.
But lean into those things every once in a while.
Yeah.
Be aware of what happens, what comes out of it, but lean into it.
Yeah. And when we do things like that, we're like, if you want to go for a walk with Six and maybe not work on something, then you're going to go on a certain kind of walk.
Yes.
You're not going to maybe go walk
Here or there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
And then
there's
if I didn't want to walk, or I just wanted to go for a walk, but he needs to work,
Mhm.
then that's what I give to him. Because if he starts losing it and
Yeah.
his instincts kick in, well, I get to work.
Yeah.
So it's just it's an ebb and flow.
Yeah.
But a very important point. So let's bring this episode to a close with a couple stories. First one is we were at a workshop, and this one person was talking about how their dog got out of their backyard and was running around the forest chasing deer, and then came back after a while, and they were joking that that was probably the best day of that dog's life. And for us, the way I kind of took that was, why don't you just let that dog go be wild if that's what you think? If you feel that just a dog running on instincts is the best day of a dog's life, then just let your dog be a dog. For us, the best day of a dog's life is complete harmony, complete liberty. Being able to run around in a forest, but not being controlled by their senses and their instincts. Just running around free, enjoying, not in pursuit of self-preservation and instincts of chasing or killing something. And obviously that's going to vary from human to human. We all have our own perception and idea of what the best day of a dog's life is.
Mhm.
But for us, a domesticated dog, the best day of their life is just complete connection and complete harmony next to our side, moving through life with their family.
Hopefully it's every day.
Every day.
Yeah.
Yeah, every day. But I thought that was interesting because I remember growing up, I grew up in a family that had many, many dogs. The most we had at one time was 3 of all, but I grew up with all different breeds. And if I look back, I would also probably say the same thing that woman said. We had dogs that would get out and they would come back and they had rolled in some dead carcass, and they're like, "Oh, you had a bunch of fun today, didn't you?"
Mm.
Or they got out and who knows what they did, but we were like, "Oh, you probably had a lot of fun." And I resonate. My old self resonates with that comment that woman made. But now my new self is the total opposite of that, which is just very peculiar.
It feels as if it's a dog, that's the best day of its life.
Yes.
If it's a domesticated dog, the way that we feel, that's the best day of their life.
Yeah. Yeah. And I guess maybe there's just a lot of dogs that are kind of in purgatory. They're like torn. They've got that best day, and then I actually love my human.
Mm.
And I like being around you, but whoop, snap. I'm a dog right now, so I want to go chase that. Oh, I'm back being domesticated. Oh, hello, I love you. I love you. It's this kind of Jekyll and Hyde situation
It's
going
the
on.
learning process.
Yeah. And then one last story. Last year, I was walking on a beach, and it was early, first thing in the morning, probably like 7:30 in the morning. And Six and I walked onto the beach, and there was this woman there with, it was a Vizsla, a puppy, probably, I don't know, 6 to 10 months old. Super excited, super excitable. This woman didn't have a lot of boundaries with her dog, but she had been to a trainer and watched lots of different training shows, which she told me. But when I walked onto the beach, this dog just kind of came over and was jumping on me, but then got entrenched and engrossed in Six and was just jumping on him, jumping, like trying to get to his face, lick his face and all this stuff. And I'm standing there and I'm kind of moving him around, keeping the dog away, because Six was still pretty new to me at the time.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't really know how he was going to react to this, because it was the first time this situation had ever happened with this just completely chaotic dog all over him. And so I'm moving his feet and whatnot. And this woman she looks at me and she's like, it's okay. Let him correct my dog. Let him teach my dog. And I remember it was all like kind of in slow motion, but I looked at her kind of just, it was like time stopped, and I was like, why would I have my dog correct your dog and teach your dog? That's your job. That's your job. Because if I do that, if I just let Six teach your dog, then now he's going to think that that is his job.
Mm-hmm.
That is not a job that I want him to have. That is not a fully domesticated dog. A fully domesticated dog would learn how to navigate that situation. Juno knew how to navigate that situation. Stitch knows how to navigate that situation. Pack members know how to navigate that situation and not revert to being a dog. Because we don't want a dog.
Mm-hmm.
And so after I told her, I was like, no, I don't want my dog to learn or think or feel that it needs to act for itself and defend itself in that way, in that dog way. And she was nice about it. She was like, I respect that. I respect that.
Mm.
Or she proceeded to tell me, she's like, oh, well, dogs can teach dogs, and it's healthy for them to do that, and so on and so forth. And I get it, because we used to do that.
Mm-hmm.
That's how we allowed our pack to function, was if dogs stepped out of line, then they would get corrected.
Mm-hmm.
Dogs were too energetic, other dogs would chase after them. Just a jolly dog,
Mm-hmm.
running around frolicking, they would go and get corrected by another pack member, because that energy is not acceptable. Meanwhile, we know that that dog's just a jolly dog. It's got great recall. It's good with humans. It's like basically a finished dog. It's just running around having a good time. Meanwhile, this instinctual dog over here is running over to correct it and stop it. And it's like, no. You let that dog go and enjoy life. You're the one that needs help. You're the one who needs the guidance. Because instinctually, you're going to shut that down, which in dog psychology, yeah, that's what happens.
And this is a dog running around playing not like the dog on the beach. Yeah.
Yes. And so we get that there's different psychology out there. There's different ways of handling. And we understand that there's a very large movement of people who want dogs to correct other dogs. I saw on Instagram the other day this dog trainer who has these pretty alpha dogs, and he'll put muzzles on them. And people will bring their unruly dogs over to him and to basically be corrected and dominated by his hardcore dominant dogs to learn that situation.
Mm.
And I'm looking at this like, you're just a bystander watching your dog get punked by another dog.
Mm-hmm.
And I was picturing like kids. I'm like, you're taking your unruly kid that you don't know how to manage to another person to let their kid bully your kid to teach them to act better.
Mm-hmm.
And I just think about psychologically how much trust is that building in the humans. But teach their own. It is what it is. I see all kinds of stuff online. But for us, that's just what we used to do. Juno, he would do that until I put a stop to it. Because I was like, that's not your job. And as soon as I took that away from him, man, that just elevated him even more.
Mm-hmm.
Because he was my go-to dog for that stuff. I'd be like, oh, here, meet my dog.
Right.
He'll show you what's up. But I was like, why am I doing that to you? You can just enjoy life. You don't need that job. And when we remove that from the pack, and all the dogs just realize they just get to come out and enjoy, that was a big eye opener for us.
Yeah. Well, you imagine I'm going to turn the dogs on the beach into humans.
Mm-hmm.
But Six and this Vishla as humans, and that would be
Human kids.
You're just humans.
Humans, yeah.
That would be like me walking down the street in the morning and someone coming over to me and getting in my face. Maybe they're excited about who I am and they really want to meet me and say hi to me, and I just explode all over them.
Right.
To me, something that I strive for as a human is, in a situation like that, being able to diffuse the situation
Mm-hmm.
and move through it without conflict.
Yeah.
And that's what we're looking for. That's what we inspire in the dogs.
Yeah.
Is how best can I move through this situation without creating conflict?
Mm-hmm. Well, the other element to this, and this is that ceiling, coming back to the ceiling, is I would imagine that, let's say for this dog trainer who uses that, or even us we had a ceiling, is that if we brought on a dog that didn't respond to Juno,
Which happened.
We were screwed.
Yep.
We didn't know what to do. And similarly with this dog trainer, if people call him up and they bring their dog over and that dog doesn't respond to his dominant dog, then he's got to go get a bigger, more dominant dog, which maybe he has. But then if that dog whose humans brought them there, isn't toppled by his secondary dog, then if he doesn't have a third, or even if he does have a third, it's just, where does it end? Because there are some dogs out there that just don't care.
Yeah, they don't yield.
They have zero inclination to yield. And so, what do you do with them?
Yeah.
Or there's just a nasty situation that happens. And it doesn't need to be that way. It's uncalled for in our eyes. But to each their own.
Yeah, I mean, there are situations Stitch has met and continues to meet lots of different dogs with lots of different behaviors, lots of different backgrounds and feelings. And his default, his everything, is to diffuse, be neutral, and not be reactive when he's greeting.
Mm-hmm.
And if he wasn't like that, and he was more confrontational, he was more maybe alpha,
Dog.
more dog, he would have had situations that weren't great.
Yeah, there would have been so many altercations.
Yeah. Which
And
would
which
have
would have,
caused behaviors in him and feelings in him.
or which would have driven you/us, if we didn't work with dogs the way that we do, to be amongst that giant group of people that don't greet other dogs on the street.
Avoid, yeah.
They just avoid dog parks and they avoid greeting other dogs on the street because they're dealing with dogs and their instincts.
Yeah.
And if you're dealing with dog psychology, well, then you're dealing with a dog psychology. And so, yeah, grieving dogs, if you haven't elevated them beyond dog psychology, then you are probably going to try to avoid other dogs, especially on leash.
Mm-hmm.
So
It's really magical to see, honestly.
it's just,
To
it's so,
see a dog that's coming in really hot and you can feel that they're kind of waiting for
mm-hmm.
Stitch to make a move or twitch or this or that to throw down.
Yep.
And Stitch just glides through it.
Yeah.
And the other dog, they leave the situation and it's complete harmony.
Yeah.
To me, that's a sign of a beautiful being.
Or the opposite, where it's a really timid dog.
Yeah.
Those they move me more inside.
Yeah.
When it's a really timid dog, and Six is already picking up on this, which is great. If they're really timid and he goes to smell and they do ... he'll just stop and freeze.
Yeah.
And they'll see that and then gain some confidence in knowing that he's not going to come at them and push them around. And so he stays still and they come around and they get some sniffing in, and then they carry on.
Yeah. And meanwhile, Stitch or Six don't get to interact.
Yeah, and they don't care.
Yeah, and they just let the other dog have the experience.
Yeah.
And then they move on.
Yeah.
It's very magical.
Yeah. Well, we covered quite a bit. This is, like I said in the beginning, the highest first, seek the highest first, is not the easiest thing, but it's pretty integral to Cole and myself, our personalities. I'm very grateful that you are the way that you are, because we have alignment there. And there's support there. But we realize that that's not for everyone. And we enjoy working with humans and dogs that just want simple things. And then we also enjoy people who want to chew on and try to climb the mountain of stuff. But whatever you choose and however you choose to work dogs, work with them, your goals, etc., we support you And we appreciate you and your time that you do give to these beings, because their life is very short. And any love and compassion and guidance that we give them will help them. And time is beneficial.
Yeah.
So we appreciate you all. We support you. And we appreciate you sharing time with us.
Yeah.
Listening to this podcast. And we look forward to sharing time with you, hopefully either in person or again on the next podcast. Until then, enjoy.
Thank you.
And thank you.